Dasar dalam memperkembang projek ladang solar dan pembangunan infrastruktur nuklear antara isu yang dijangka menjadi tumpuan persidangan Dewan Rakyat hari ini. Impak penetapan had umur penggunaan platform media sosial di Malaysia perlu dianalisis lebih teliti, khususnya membabitkan kajian dan penilaian sosial seperti kesan psikologi serta perbezaan eksas kepada maklumat dan komunikasi antara kanak-kanak serta remaja, kata Menteri Komunikasi Fahmi Fadzil. Pemimpin Arab menerima pakai pelan pembinaan semula Gaza yang dicadangkan oleh Mesir dengan kos dianggarkan $53 bilion Amerika tanpa melibatkan pemindahan penduduk Palestin dari wilayah itu. Presiden Mesir Abdul Fattah Al-Sisi mengumumkan cadangan tersebut diterima pada penutupan sidang kemuncak di Kahirah pada Selasa.
Salam sejahtera, anda bersama saya Rozman dan ini Niaga AWANI, tempat anda mendapatkan info terkini dalam dunia perniagaan, pasaran dan juga ekonomi dari peringkat tempatan hingga global. Dan hari ini kita akan kupas segalanya daripada reaksi pasaran global terhadap dasar perdagangan sehingga ke teknologi yang mengubah dunia. Dan pertama sekali kita akan bincangkan bagaimana AI dan inovasi Malaysia mampu bersaing di peringkat global, terutama dalam industri perisian kreatif ataupun kreatif software yang dikuasai oleh kebanyakan gergasi antarabangsa seperti Adobe dan juga Canva. Salah satu syarikat yang membuktikan bahawa Malaysia boleh menjadi peneraju dalam bidang ini ialah Pixlr Group, sebuah syarikat AI SaaS 100% milik Malaysia dengan lebih 10 juta pengguna bulanan di seluruh dunia. Jadi bagaimana Pixlr berjaya menembusi pasaran global? Apakah cabaran dan kelebihan sebagai syarikat tempatan dalam industri AI? Untuk itu saya akan terus mempersilakan tetamu yang sudah bersedia dalam studio adalah Ketua Pegawai Eksekutif Pixlr Group, Warren Leo. Saya nak ucapkan terima kasih Warren kerana sudi meluangkan masa bersama kami. Sudah tentu kita lihat inovasi yang telah dicipta oleh syarikat Warren ini adalah satu kebanggaan kepada negara. Tetapi kita tahu bukan mudah kerana apabila bercakap mengenai teknologi, inovasi ia bergerak dengan pantas, laju, semakin kompleks dan mungkin dynamics. Mungkin boleh ceritakan dahulu perjalanan Pixlr Group. Kita tahu bukan mudah untuk memudahkan, menyediakan perkhidmatan yang dapat memudahkan pengguna. Mungkin boleh kongsikan, walk us through your journey. Bagaimanakah Pixlr Group berdiri sehingga sekarang?
So, syarikat Pixlr Group merupakan satu syarikat software as a service SaaS yang menggunakan AI supaya pengguna boleh mengeluarkan ataupun menghidupkan konten-konten kreatif dengan menggunakan teknologi yang terkini. Kami mempunyai beberapa perisian seperti Pixlr.com, Designs.ai, Inabit.ai dan juga Vector.com yang digunakan untuk pelbagai kegunaan. Sebagai contoh, Pixlr merupakan photo editor, Designs.ai merupakan marketing suite, Inabit merupakan text to presentation tool dan Vector merupakan online vector editing tool. So dari segi sejarah, sebenarnya kami sebagai syarikat induk membeli Pixlr.com daripada syarikat Autodesk pada tahun 2017. Dan setelah membeli itu, kami mewujudkan satu ekosistem SaaS yang komprehensif di mana maklumat dan visi kami ialah menjadikan workflow kreatif dengan lebih cepat, cekap dan cermat. Smarter, faster and easier. Itu merupakan slogan kami.
Baik, itu adalah sedikit latar belakang mengenai Pixlr Group dan apakah antara perkhidmatan, terutama kita akan cakap dalam dunia rekaan lah AI ini. Mungkin boleh ceritakan, kita tahu Pixlr Group 100% milik syarikat Malaysia. Mungkin boleh kongsikan apakah antara cabaran dan kelebihan, terutama dalam bidang ataupun ruang AI dan juga kreatif software ini.
So, dari segi kebaikan ataupun sumbangan kepada pembangunan industri, khususnya jika berpangkalan di Malaysia. Nombor satu ialah kos operasi. Kos operasi di Malaysia lebih rendah berbanding dengan kos di negara-negara seperti Amerika Syarikat dan seterusnya. Tetapi dari segi cabaran utama ialah dari segi pasaran. Pasaran utama untuk perisian untuk mana-mana syarikat teknologi kebanyakan ialah berpusat kepada negara-negara maju. Kerana ekonomi di sana lebih maju dan para pengguna di sana lebih bersedia untuk membayar untuk perisian masing-masing. Dari segi sejarah kami, apabila kami memulakan perniagaan kami lebih kurang 20 tahun yang lepas. Pada masa itu, piracy merupakan satu masalah yang amat meluas Tetapi apabila e-commerce semakin pesat membangun, maka para pengguna perniagaan masing-masing juga lebih bersedia untuk membayar sekiranya mereka menampak kebaikan ataupun penaik tarafan dari segi keupayaan untuk menjana lebih banyak jualan. Tetapi setakat ini kebanyakan jualan kami, kebanyakan pengguna kami masih datang daripada negara-negara maju seperti Amerika, Eropah dan juga negara-negara Tier 1 di Asia seperti Jepun dan juga Korea Selatan dan sebagainya.
Dan itu adalah sedikit kalau kita boleh rangkumkan antara kebaikan dan sumbangan adalah daripada kos operasi lebih rendah dan cabaran utama adalah daripada segi market pasaran. Bagaimana untuk kita lihat perisian ataupun syarikat teknologi ini kebanyakannya berpusat di seperti yang Warren kongsikan di negara-negara maju dan tahap kesediaan readiness untuk mereka adaptasi dan subscribe sendiri perkhidmatan inovasi AI ini. Tetapi kalau kita lihat Pixlr juga bersaing dengan syarikat gergasi besar teknologi seperti Adobe, Canva. Namun kita lihat Pixlr berjaya iaitu mendapat lebih kurang 10 juta pengguna. Mungkin boleh kongsikan apakah antara faktor-faktor utama yang unique selling position yang mendorong 10 juta dan mungkin lebih lagi untuk mengambil ataupun kita boleh cakap subscribe kepada Pixlr.
Okey. So sebenarnya syarikat Adobe dan Canva merupakan syarikat yang amat-amat besar. Sebagai contoh, syarikat Adobe dalam masa setahun tu syarikat tersebut menjual lebih kurang $15 billion Adobe Creative Cloud. Dan setahu saya jualan untuk Canva dalam masa setahun ialah lebih kurang 2 hingga 2.5 billion dolar juga. Pixlr taklah sampai tahap itu. Tetapi oleh sebab produk-produk kami telah mencapai dan berjaya menembusi niche masing-masing. Sebagai contoh, Pixlr.com merupakan salah satu peranti dan perisian foto editing yang dikeluarkan lebih kurang 15 tahun yang lepas. Semasa zaman Flash, di mana ramai pengguna di online mencari alternatif kepada perisian Photoshop. Dan apabila mereka cari kat Google tu, mereka ternampak Pixlr. Dan sampai hari ini, apabila para pengguna menggunakan kata-kata kosa seperti AI image generator atau AI photo editor, Pixlr merupakan di tahap di peringkat nombor 1, nombor 2, nombor 3 dalam Google search results. Itulah cara para pengguna boleh mencari alternatif yang diguna secara percuma kerana bisnes model kami merupakan bisnes model freemium.
Freemium.
Dan dengan itu pengguna Pixlr bolehlah mencapai tahap 10 juta sebulan.
Bagaimana konsep freemium itu kalau boleh jelaskan?
Okay. So konsep freemium bermaksud dari segi business model, kebanyakan pengguna itu boleh mengguna sebahagian daripada fungsi perisian tersebut dengan percuma sampai sesuatu tahap. Tetapi apabila dah mencapai tahap yang tertentu dan mereka nak mengguna dengan lebih banyak ataupun menggunakan fungsi yang lebih canggih, maka akan terdapat satu prompt untuk mereka untuk upgrade menjadi pengguna berbayar. Apabila mereka membayar, maka mereka nak mendapat fungsi yang lebih komprehensif ataupun lebih mendalam.
Daripada freemium ke premium.
Ya,
dan
betul.
kita lihat itu adalah antara yang diusahakan oleh juga Canva. Namun kita lihat seperti yang dikongsikan walaupun jumlah ataupun hasil daripada Pixlr tak mungkin setinggi seperti Adobe dan Canva, belum lagi. Tetapi kalau kita lihat, Warren juga kongsikan berjaya mencapai niche masing-masing. Mungkin ada keperluan ni dapat memenuhi kehendak pelanggan ataupun customer dan kita cakap, okey, Canva boleh penuhi ini dan kita lihat Adobe boleh penuhi, Pixlr juga boleh penuhi apa yang diperlukan oleh pelanggan itu sendiri. Dan namun kita lihat bukan mudah untuk sesebuah syarikat teknologi AI terutamanya dengan software kreatif ini. Jadi bagaimana mungkin boleh kongsikan Pixlr, bagaimana seimbangkan antara aspek-aspek utama seperti mampu milik affordability dan user performance termasuk juga accessibility punya ekosistem ni berbanding dengan Canva ataupun Adobe. Mungkin boleh kongsikan sedikit perbezaan.
So kalau nak bersaing dengan syarikat gergasi seperti Adobe dan Canva, kalau lawan head on tu memang susah. So oleh sebab tu sebagai satu conglomerate yang mempunyai beberapa perisian, memang penting untuk kami mencari product market fit.
Okay.
Product market fit dalam bahasa Melayu tu merupakan fungsi yang boleh mencapai ataupun membantu menyelesaikan masalah dalam pasaran. Mengikut penerimaan ataupun kegunaan pelanggan dan juga pengguna. Apabila ia boleh memberikan sesuatu nilai, maka pengguna lebih senang untuk membayar kerana mereka boleh memberi justifikasi masing-masing. Untuk saya menjawab soalan daripada Nina, yang penting ialah apakah nilai yang kita boleh memberi kepada pengguna, value tersebut. So dalam niche masing-masing, kita perlu mempunyai USP sendiri berbanding dengan misalnya Adobe dan Canva. Adobe mereka fokus kepada pengguna profesional seperti tim kreatif di Astro AWANI. Apabila mereka memerlukan perisian untuk video editing yang canggih, audio editing yang canggih, kebanyakannya mereka menggunakan Adobe Creative Cloud. Canva merupakan perisian yang terpilih untuk mereka yang bukan profesional biasanya, seperti marketer, mereka yang membuat pemasaran, mereka membuat jualan ataupun komunikasi. Pixlr pula menerusi perisian masing-masing juga fokus kepada kelompok pengguna communicator yang fokus kepada komunikasi. So seperti tim marketing, tim HR ataupun komunikasi. Sebagai contoh, Pixlr.com merupakan perisian alternatif kepada Photoshop daripada Adobe yang fokus kepada profesional, tapi kami merupakan di titik pertengahan antara Canva dan juga Adobe dengan harga 20% daripada apa yang dibayar kepada Adobe. Itu merupakan strategi kami lah untuk mencari niche pengguna masing-masing.
Jadi daripada niche kita boleh cakap beginner, advance, lepas tu kira master. Itu adalah antara peranan yang dimainkan oleh setiap creative software seperti Pixlr dan kita boleh cakap syarikat-syarikat yang lain. Namun kita tahu bukan mudah juga walaupun kita lihat, walaupun ada niche masing-masing, tapi kita ingin lihat daripada segi model pendapatan, terutamanya untuk Pixlr, mungkin ada yang telah dikongsikan juga design AI, in-a-bit AI dan juga vector. Adakah kita lihat ia berdasarkan subscription ataupun pelesinan, integrasi API ataupun model lain? Penting untuk kita teliti ini kerana kita ingin melihat tahap kelasaran syarikat Pixlr itu sendiri.
Okay, so Pixlr merupakan syarikat yang menggunakan business model freemium, iaitu free to use but premium to upgrade. Satu. Nombor dua, merupakan bisnes yang menggunakan software as a service, iaitu langganan bulanan ataupun tahunan. Okay. Dan yang ketiga, dari segi upselling ataupun penentuan harga, right? Ia terbahagi kepada pengguna yang self-serve, iaitu pengguna yang dapat mencari perisian kami secara online, ataupun pengguna enterprise. Enterprise itu merupakan syarikat-syarikat besar dan ia memerlukan lebih banyak servicing, lebih banyak dari segi support dan juga sokongan untuk kegunaan dalam tim masing-masing. So kebanyakan daripada pengguna kami adalah pengguna online. Kerana mereka mencari kami dari platform masing-masing seperti Google ataupun Meta ataupun TikTok untuk memenuhi keperluan mereka. Satu, right? Nombor dua, yang fokus utama kami adalah untuk meningkatkan traffic pengguna yang datang kepada platform. Nombor dua, meningkatkan tahap conversion rate, iaitu konversi kepada pembayaran. Dan ketiga, apakah tahap harga jualan yang kita boleh tentukan. Dan yang keempat, retention, iaitu penyambungan ataupun sambungan pelangganan. Seperti contoh Astro lah. Kalau mereka dah langgan sampai 6 bulan, bagaimana kita boleh menggalakkan pelangganan sampai 9 bulan atau 12 bulan. Itu merupakan bisnes model yang umum. Tetapi ada satu faktor yang amat penting, khususnya dari segi tukaran pasaran disebabkan oleh AI. AI sekarang ini dia memakan kos dari segi server. Dan oleh sebab itu ia tidak boleh diberikan secara unlimited tanpa had kepada pengguna kerana kos itu akan meningkat tetapi harga jualan tak meningkat. Oleh sebab itu, kebanyakan syarikat AI yang sedia ada ni, mereka dalam keadaan flux untuk mencari bisnes model yang baru. Di mana nilai yang diberikan bukan sahaja kepada harga tetapi kepada output yang diberikan. Itu merupakan satu tukaran bisnes model yang amat hangat dalam industri. Bukan sahaja dari industri kami tapi dari juga industri perisian AI secara menyeluruh.
Baik, dan kita lihat mungkin akhir sekali saya nak tambah soalan saya. Kita tahu Pixlr Group ini telah membuktikan bahawa syarikat tempatan seperti Malaysia yang ekonomi kecil dan terbuka ini mampu juga bersaing bersama dengan ataupun kita lihat standing dengan syarikat-syarikat gergasi di luar sana global, dan kita lihat sehingga ada subscriber di luar negara. Ini menunjukkan bahawa Pixlr berjaya untuk memenuhi kehendak-hendak bukan sahaja di peringkat domestik tapi apa yang berlaku di peringkat antarabangsa sekali. Jadi mungkin bantu kami faham bagaimanakah Pixlr itu sendiri dapat membangunkan bangunan bakat AI terutamanya. Kalau kita lihat sudah membuktikan we need more people, more talent and skill. Apakah antara inisiatif ataupun yang telah dilakukan oleh Pixlr kerjasama antara startup ke, universiti ke ataupun program latihan?
Okay, so kami ada lebih kurang 70 staff, right, yang di mana 90% berada di Malaysia. Oleh sebab kami berpangkalan di Malaysia, maka bakat-bakat yang kami mencungkil itu kebanyakan juga orang Malaysia. Itu nombor satu. Right? Dari segi pembangunan teknologi yang bagus dan juga pemasaran ke tahap global. Nombor dua, kami juga telah menandatangani MOU, MOC, MOA dengan beberapa universiti UiTM, UTM, UPSI dan sebagai contoh untuk membantu membangunkan bakat dan juga mengambil bakat kerana kami senantiasa mencari bakat untuk syarikat kami. Right. Dan nombor tiga, kami juga merupakan salah satu pengasas utama untuk konsortium AI negara, iaitu satu komuniti untuk startup-startup AI dan juga ahli akademik dan juga pemangking ekosistem AI supaya ia menjadi satu kumpulan untuk berinteraksi dengan penggubah polisi daripada kerajaan. Dan kali ini menjadi satu saluran untuk berkongsi pendapat, permintaan dan juga cadangan untuk membina ekosistem AI di negara ini. Dengan itu, kami berharap syarikat Pixlr boleh memainkan peranan yang penting untuk mendirikan ekosistem AI yang lebih menyeluruh supaya Malaysia boleh mencapai potensi yang lebih besar.
Dan segala usaha yang telah dikongsikan oleh Warren termasuk inisiatif ini jelas membuktikan banyak lagi perkara yang kita perlu lakukan dan banyak sudah yang dilakukan, namun paling penting bergerak ke hadapan. Kita harus tetap kuat dan kukuh untuk membentuk masa depan AI terutamanya dalam sektor kreatif. Sekali lagi saya nak ucapkan terima kasih kepada tetamu kita Warren Leong merupakan Ketua Pegawai Eksekutif Pixlr Group, dan harap kita jumpa lagi dan setiap perbincangan ini akan kami rangkumkan dalam astroawani.com dan di semua platform digital Astro Awani. Jangan ke mana-mana, Niaga Awani akan berhenti rehat seketika dan kembali selepas ini.
Lebih 300 kaki tangan Mas Wings akan diserap sebagai warga Air Borneo, kata Menteri Pangkutan Sarawak Datuk Seri Lee Kim Shin. Beliau menjelaskan bahawa ini adalah sebahagian daripada perjanjian apabila Sarawak memperoleh Mas Wings. Johor Port Berhad dan Kesatuan Pekerja Johor Port JPU mencatatkan pencapaian penting dengan menandatangani perjanjian kolektif CA baharu bagi tempoh 5 tahun akan datang bermula 2025 hingga 2029. CA ketujuh sejak penubuhan JPU pada tahun 1998 itu mencerminkan komitmen bersama kedua-dua pihak untuk memupuk persekitaran kerja yang harmoni, positif dan produktif sambil menyokong pertumbuhan terusan Johor Port sebagai pelabuhan serantau yang terkemuka. XOX Berhad melantik Datuk Kenneth Von Yun Lun sebagai pengarah urusan baharunya yang menandakan kepada fasa pertumbuhan dan era inovasi untuk syarikat telekomunikasi tempatan itu. Dengan pengalaman luas selama lebih 30 tahun, beliau pernah menerajui perniagaan dan merentasi pelbagai sektor termasuk teknologi, kewangan, pembangunan hartanah serta industri makanan dan minuman. Laporan penuh di saluran 501 dan astroawani.com serta dagangnews.com.
All right, let's focus on the international news. Shares of U.S. companies were under pressure after the latest escalation in Washington's trade war, with new tariffs on Canada and Mexico expected to hit earnings in several sectors, including automobiles, aerospace, retail, and even housing. Economically sensitive stocks such as airlines and banks led declines of Wall Street's main indexes on Tuesday on the new tariffs.
On Monday, the benchmark S&P 500 suffered its worst day of this year after the US tariffs were confirmed. US President Donald Trump imposed 25% tariffs on imports from Mexico and Canada effective Tuesday. The action covers more than $900 billion worth of annual US imports from the two countries. Trump also doubled duties on Chinese imports to 20% to punish Beijing over the US fentanyl overdose crisis. Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, speaking just hours after the US tariffs took effect, announced immediate 25% tariffs on 20.66 billion of US imports, with the potential to target on additional 125 billion Canadian dollar in 21 days if necessary. China also responded with additional tariffs of 10 to 15% on certain US imports from March 10th, while Mexico is poised to swiftly retaliate against its long-standing ally.
Now let's take a look at the latest overview of the S&P 500 index as of this morning. We're going to start from the automotive sector with General Motors, or GM, is down by 4.56%. And to take a look at Ford also, following the red color as GM is also down by 2.88%. And we can see from this performance, shares of US automakers Ford and GM lost 1.9% and 1.6% respectively on Tuesday, as the sector is heavily exposed to tariffs due to the integrated nature of auto manufacturing between the three North American nations. S&P Global estimates the new duties on imports from Mexico and Canada could cost affected US car makers on average 10% until 25% of their annual EBITDA. Trump's 25% tariffs on imported steel and aluminium would also increase costs for the industry, which accounted for 15% of net shipments of iron and steel in 2024, S&P Global said in a note. And Target said it's braced for first quarter profit pressure, its shares also moving lower. JP Morgan's analysts also expect automakers to bear the brunt of direct costs from tariffs on Canada and Mexico, with some pain to be shared with suppliers, dealers, and even consumers. This could cost General Motors about $14 billion and Ford about $6 billion. Ford has 3 plants in Mexico. GM's 3 plants in Canada produce electric vans, the Chevrolet Silverado heavy-duty truck, and the V8 engine of dual-clutch transmission. And next, I'm going to share you within the Finviz.com about NVIDIA. NVIDIA is the opposite performance between the automakers, is up by 1.69% as of this morning. And for the latest updates on NVIDIA, Malaysia will take necessary actions against local companies if they are found to be involved in a fraud case involving the alleged movement of NVIDIA's artificial intelligence AI chips from Singapore to China. Investment, Trade and Industry Minister Tengku Datuk Sri Zafrul Abdul Aziz said the investigation involves the police, the custom, the Malaysian Communications and Multimedia Commission. His comments followed that of Singapore's Law and Home Affairs Minister K. Shanmugam, who said on Monday that servers from United States firms Dell and Supermicro were sent to Singapore-based companies. Shanmugam said the servers were then exported to Malaysia and likely contain items subject to export controls by the US. The server may have contained NVIDIA chips, Shanmugam added. Whether they ended up in Malaysia or another country is being looked into. Singapore has contacted Malaysia and the US for more information. And that's the latest on market developments, with tariff pressures weighing on the auto sector and potential disruptions in tech. So stay with us for more updates. And up next, my colleagues Harits Asyraf will bring you the latest MWC 2025 highlights, where we'll explore how Mobile and CelcomDigi are paving the way for the future of 5G. Don't go anywhere. See you after this.
Nak coklat? Hari ni tak boleh. Nanti saya kena dengan mak saya. Pepsodent baharu disahkan halal. Mikrokalsium aktif dan Proflorida kompleks membantu memperbaiki lubang halus akibat makanan manis sebelum menjadi kaviti untuk perlindungan maksimum. Pepsodent.
Welcome to the special show of Niaga AWANI in conjunction with Mobile World Congress MWC 2025 here in Barcelona. And 5G technology is not just about faster internet. It is revolutionizing industries from smart farming to real-time broadcasting. And as Malaysia scales up its 5G adoption, U-Mobile is stepping up with cutting-edge innovations, including 5G advanced live broadcasting for SUKMA and 5G-enabled robotics in agriculture. And with Malaysia aiming to be a regional digital leader, U-Mobile roles as the second 5G network provider is pivotal in shaping the country's connectivity landscape. And with me today, I'm honored Mr. Won Oi Yuan, Chief Technology Officer of U-Mobile. Thank you for being with us in Niaga AWANI today here in MWC.
Thank you for inviting me for this interview.
Yes, first of all, Mr. Won, what will U-Mobile be showcasing at MWC here, and how do this innovation demonstrate the company effort in advancing its vision for Malaysia digital transformation?
First of all, we U-Mobile are delighted that we once again participate in Malaysian Pavilion in this year Mobile World Congress 2025. What we bring to this pavilion is focusing on two verticals. One is agriculture and partnering Braintree to bring robotics and 5G capabilities into this use case. Another one is broadcasting verticals. What we want to showcase is what we did live in one of the most iconic sporting event in Malaysia, SUKMA.
And of course, could you tell us more about your case with Braintree Technologies, and how does 5G powered robotics help improve productivity in agriculture sector?
Yeah, first of all, I think Braintree is a company where they create innovation and they are focusing on agriculture, specifically plantation of oil palm. So what they did is flying drones to do mapping of the plantation of the trees, of the palm trees, and of course with connected 5G services on top of it, so that the drone can map every single tree. And with that, the farmer can decide to on the fertilizer, right? So this tree need more fertilizer, this tree need less fertilizer. So they created a robot which connected via 5G Advanced, and this robot can detect which tree need this certain percentage of fertilizer, and they move to another tree and give different kind of content of fertilizer.
Very specific to each tree.
Very specific to each tree. So this able to do this with connectivity of 5G Advanced, and on top of that is about AI analytics that inbuilt into the robots, so that they can inspect every single tree and put the right content of fertilizer. And this helps the farmer save a lot of cost. So because each tree requires different kind of treatment. And not only that, I think I want to touch base a bit about the broadcasting. The broadcasting verticals. We are using low latency, ultra low latency, and high throughput 5G Advanced. What we do is we empower the broadcasters, the cameraman, from a wired camera to a wireless camera. And with wireless camera, we can give them a lot of creativity to move around, take the right live moment about the athletes, right? How they jump, how they run.
Creative angles.
Without fearing of the cables, right? And with that, we also able to create an immersive VR for our home customers, home viewers, so that they be part of the SUKMA. So when they wear the goggles, the VR goggles, then they can feel themselves part of the game.
Like in the stadium.
Like in the stadium. And this has to be powered by 5G Advanced. And that we are looking forward to provide that.
And apart from what's being showcased here in MWC, what other 5G advanced use cases has U-Mobile conducted, and what are their core benefits basically?
So basically, we're a second 5G network provider. We have to provide a reliable and also good quality 5G network. So one, we have large scale of coverage, and we can spur use cases. As long as we have 5G, we can spur use cases. So not only agricultural broadcasting, we are looking at multiple verticals that we can focus on. It can be surveillance, for example. And just give you an example, recently we partnered Huawei Technologies, and we challenged each other, say that how can we stretch the 5G advanced technology via their product called Meta to provide a coverage as long as 13.5 kilometers of Penang Bridge.
Whoa.
So basically we have towers one end, another end with towers, and cover that with 5G coverage. And for 4G, you need a site in the middle to do that because it's so long.
Yes,
yeah.
correct.
So we have tried that, and we are successful, provide coverage with quality of service that is acceptable. And imagine that it's not just for consumer, and also for enterprise use case like safety, surveillance, and emergency. You can fly a drone via 5G network. So imagine that kind of use case, and also empowered by 5G Advanced.
Amazing. Okay, and besides that, which industries beyond broadcasting and agriculture stand to benefit most from your mobile's upcoming 5G rollout, and what targeted initiative are in place right now to drive adoption?
I mean, first of all the verticals is actually we need to focus on, right? So we started with agriculture broadcasting. Maybe most probably we're talking about surveillance, smart city surveillance will be the next one that we're looking at. And of course, the question of adoption, right? So firstly, you need to have a good infrastructure of 5G, which we are committed to roll out 5G infrastructure. And on top of that, you need to create a platform, an innovative platform, so that the applicators and the end users can meet through us as a catalyst to spur the use case and adoption. And second factor is about barrier entry, the cost factor, right? So we are committed to give a low barrier entry for 5G adoption, and also a very competitive wholesale pricing so that the businesses able to leverage it for their day-to-day operations.
Maybe lastly, your key takeaways from this super mega event for technologies, innovation, mobile networks. How do you see maybe like moving forward, especially in terms of collaborations between global players? Your thoughts, this platform, and key takeaways from this event?
Yeah, we are very focused for MWC in the sense that we are currently signing 3 MOUs with 3 different parties in this MWC. One is Qualcomm. So Qualcomm, for us, our ecosystem is very important because they provide chipset, they provide software that enable IoT, for example, players, and that's very important for 5G in terms of use case. Then we also sign an MOU with China Telecom, China Unicom, China Unicom, so that we can exchange 5G use cases from China and Malaysia, and we can collaborate through that. And last but not least, of course, Braintree, which is the plantation use cases. So we hope that we can sign more partnership and bring those overseas technologies to Malaysia and benefit towards Malaysia. And we are aligned with the Malaysia vision in terms of being a digital nation, and we want to play a more pivotal role to make that happen.
Mr. Woon, thank you so much, and great achievement, and we look for more achievement and success stories from U Mobiles and global partners with U Mobile throughout this MWC 2025. Thank you for watching this special show of Niaga AWANI in conjunction with Mobile World Congress 2025. I'm Harits Asyraf Hasnan. Thank you for watching.
Nak coklat? Hari ni tak boleh. Nanti saya kena dengan mak saya.
Pepsodent baharu disahkan halal. Microkalsium aktif dan Proflorida kompleks membantu memperbaiki lubang halus akibat makanan manis sebelum menjadi kaviti untuk pelindungan maksimum. Pepsodent.
Right, welcome back to Niaga AWANI. This is a special show in conjunction with Mobile World Congress 2025. And at MWC 2025, CelcomDigi is showcasing its latest advancement in 5G, AI-driven solutions, and also strategic partnerships aimed at accelerating Malaysia's digital economy. And as one of the leading mobile network operators, CelcomDigi plays a critical role in shaping the nation's connectivity landscape and enabling innovation across industry. And joining me right now, Mr. Alban Murty, Deputy Chief Executive Officer of CelcomDigi. First of all, Mr. Alban, thank you so much for being with us. Maybe you can share, as CelcomDigi joins MWC 2025 under the Malaysian pavilion here, how does this participation reinforce your leadership in Malaysia's digital transformation, and what groundbreaking innovations will you highlight here?
Yeah. Thanks, Harits. Thank you for the time as well. Firstly, I think, as part of MWC 2025, CelcomDigi in the Malaysian Pavilion, two reasons why we're here. One is to actually showcase and also show how Malaysia is leaning forward in the digital space using 5G AI technologies. We're also looking at how we can actually take some of the partnership positions. So we are here looking at new partnerships, new capabilities of taking innovation into Malaysia, and potentially also taking innovations from Malaysia out to the globally as well.
Yeah.
So I think today gives us a chance to actually showcase what Malaysia has worked with, CelcomDigi has worked with. In the Malaysian Pavilion, we have a couple of new innovations that we're showcasing, and I'll talk about that, leveraging on 5G AI technologies. And we actually hope that we're able to then add value to businesses in Malaysia to make them even more efficient in the digital age. And the other thing is, as Malaysia is also the chairman of ASEAN this year, it also gives an opportunity to showcase Malaysia in a much larger scale in terms of an attractive place to invest, but also to grow digital technology.
Yeah, maybe you can share, CelcomDigi emphasizes building a robust digital ecosystem, and how is CelcomDigi working with global and local partners to bring new technologies to Malaysia?
Yep. So Harits, as you know, right, we merged in 2022, so creating the largest mobile operator in Malaysia. Yeah. So CelcomDigi has the scale. We have 20 million customers. That is then very attractive for any partner that wants to come into Malaysia with solutions, digital solutions, security solutions, any capabilities to bring that in. So that's one part of it. So we have the subscriber and the base. The other thing is we have the investment capacity to actually invest in new capabilities and new technology, particularly in 5G AI technologies, and actually leverage what we do on the network and translate that to digital capability that we can do on services, not only to consumers but also to businesses. I think that's really the ability that we have as CelcomDigi.
Maybe you can share some examples of how CelcomDigi's 5G AI solutions are making an impact in industry like healthcare and maybe oil and gas.
Yeah, so Harits, next time you're in CelcomDigi, come visit our experience center.
Okay, great.
In there, you will actually see a couple of use cases that we've actually launched.
Okay.
One of it, two of it is here. You mentioned healthcare, where remote monitoring, for example, using 5G AI technology is very capable. In fact, it's been launched, and we do it today in Malaysia, where remote monitoring can be done by doctors for patients who are remote, far away from accessibility. But also the accuracy of the reporting is also amazing using the technology that we have. In the petroleum space, oil and gas space, we've actually worked with oil and gas companies to deploy the ability to monitor prior to activities that take place. So it's a prevention rather than post-accident or implementation. It's a prevention of things that can be done using 5G AI technology. We can actually foresee the areas of safety, production and efficiency much better. So we actually launched these two products in Malaysia, and in our experience center you'll be able to now come and see real life cases of it as well.
And maybe with CelcomDigi position as Malaysia's largest mobile network operator, what are the next steps in shaping Malaysia into a 5G AI powered digital society?
Yeah, so as I started saying just now, I think what this gives us is the opportunity to attract innovation into the country. And you have 20 million base. You also have a 5G capability, AI capability network. That itself is attractive for not just large companies, but also small innovation companies, small services that can come into Malaysia for both consumers, but also enterprise. And don't forget SME. I mean, we have a large SME base in Malaysia that needs innovations to improve their own efficiency. And we believe in CelcomDigi that at CelcomDigi we are able to then take that services out to those industries, SME, large-scale companies, but also to consumers.
Yeah. Maybe lastly, what are CelcomDigi's maybe like key takeaways from this international event?
Yeah, so this is the day one. So
Yeah.
I think we have a few of us from CelcomDigi visiting the various booths. But we're not only looking at large companies and innovations, we're also looking and spotting for key innovation services that are very interesting and upcoming from the startup community as well. So there's a hall dedicated all to startups. There's a hall dedicated to companies that are transforming, both of which is interesting. We're going to go there and look and also have some fun learning from people who are doing fantastic things globally as well.
Thank you so much. And of course, we look forward maybe like more collaborations between CelcomDigi and global players in the near future. Thank you so much. Thank you for watching this special show in conjunction with Mobile World Congress 2025. I'm Harits Asyraf. Thank you for watching.
Kita heal dulu sekejap. Nak memborak.
Kan seronok beraktiviti bersama?
Life is very colourful.
Alhamdulillah.
Ya, yay! So all these elements sama juga macam ada berkawan. Kasih sayang, timbang rasa, spice them up.
Andai tiada suri.
Korang masak kan? Suri dia busy dengan anak.
Untunglah ada mak lah.
Santai dan buka minda bersama slot 11 malam. Indahnya lain macam. Di Astro Ria dan Astro Go.
Hi, good morning and welcome to ASEAN Kita with me, Amirul Aiman, and my co-host Farhan Hakimi, where we discuss challenges, opportunities and stories that lies in the region of ASEAN. And Farhan, across ASEAN, thousands seek safety, stability and a chance to rebuild their lives, yet the response varies from country to country. With no unified regional framework, how can ASEAN balance national interests with humanitarian responsibility? Should burden sharing be a collective effort? Or does each nation stand alone in this challenge?
And Amirul, joining us today is Dr. Aslam Abdul Jalil from University Malaya, an expert in migration and refugee studies, to help us unpack these critical questions. Welcome, Doctor. Thank you for joining us on AWANI.
Thank you for having me.
Well, let's go to the first question. ASEAN has traditionally focused on non-interference in domestic affairs. How does these principles shape the region's approach to the refugee crisis, and also does it need to, evolve?
So thank you for the question. So I guess before we begin, probably it's a good idea to have a global picture, an overview about the refugee issue in the world. So as of end June 2024, there are over 122 million displaced people around the world. And amongst them, 43.7 million are refugees, 8 million are asylum seekers, as well as 72 million are internally displaced people. And 71% of these refugees are hosted in low and middle income countries, and 69% are hosted in neighboring countries. Well, there are like 30% of world's population who are children, and refugees, 40% of these refugees are children. So I guess in the context of ASEAN, the three main countries which are affected by refugee crisis are Malaysia, Indonesia, and Thailand. And because of the significant number of refugee populations in these countries. So Malaysia has the highest number, over 192,000 refugees and asylum seekers. Indonesia around 13,000, and Thailand, they are around 86,000 refugees, and of course there are thousands of stateless people. So some key observations about the situation, refugee situation in ASEAN, in Southeast Asia region. So number one, ASEAN, it's a region, it's a home to refugees from this region, from ASEAN, as well as from other regions like the Middle East or Africa. And secondly, majority of these refugees are urban refugees. They reside in urban areas. And thirdly, there's a myth that these refugees are in ASEAN countries just temporarily. But that's not the case because we have like a few generations of refugees living in ASEAN countries. So as you mentioned earlier, ASEAN, we have this concept of non-interference, and ASEAN also is based on consensus building, which means that, all countries must agree in order to do something. I guess there are two main issues that we face in ASEAN. So number one is no collective policy, which means there's no like unified legal framework, asylum framework, across ASEAN region. And secondly, our responses are normally ad hoc and temporary, based on emergency humanitarian obligations. And I think, of course, the implications would be, it would undermine the refugee protection, as well as, it would cause instability in the region when we talk about security issues, right? When there's like irregular movement of people and there's no documentation of who live in our country, that would give, some, concerns to the national security. So in terms of, yes, I totally agree that it should evolve. The ASEAN needs to step up, to have their own asylum framework that actually protects human rights as well as, address basic rights of refugees.
Dr. Rightly so that you mentioned ASEAN doesn't have a unified and also effective refugee policies. And if we look at legal and the policy gaps in the region itself, many ASEAN countries are not signatories to the 1951 refugee. So what are the implications of this, and how can ASEAN develop its own more unified and effective refugee policy, Doctor?
So yeah, that's true. Two things: 1951 Refugee Convention and its 1967 Protocol. So amongst ASEAN countries, only Cambodia, the Philippines, and newly member of ASEAN, Timor-Leste, are signatories to the Refugee Convention. The rest are not. So I think, of course, this actually causes challenges to this region, but we have to look at, the existing instruments that we have in ASEAN. So looking back at the history, back in 1989 until 1996, there's like Comprehensive Plan of Action, CPA, for Indo-Chinese refugees. So that's when Malaysia, Indonesia, and the Philippines actually decided to provide temporary shelters and camps for Vietnamese refugees. And at the same time, ASEAN collectively managed to urge the Western countries to resettle these Vietnamese refugees to their respective countries. And I think in order to develop our own asylum framework, we do not need to come up with, a new grand idea. It's enough actually to build on the existing mechanism that we have. And in fact, that the fact that ASEAN countries refuse to be signatory to the Refugee Convention is because of the rejection of Western concept of refugee and ideas and regime. So I would like to raise this issue about Bangkok Principles, for example, in 1966, and it was revised back in 2001, where actually they agreed on the treatment of refugees, on the definition, on the reception of refugees, and the kind of policies and rights that refugees should enjoy. And this was actually developed by Asian African Legal Consultative Committee, and majority of ASEAN countries are part of this committee. So I think it's a good step for us to actually develop on it. And other than that, in 2012, ASEAN had its own Declaration of Human Rights. Article 16, for example, specifically mentions the right to seek asylum for and receive asylum in another state in ASEAN region. So I think, we should develop something based on this ASEAN Declaration of Human Rights as well as Bangkok Principles.
So while we are at it, I think let's touch this contentious point, but I think it's also important to discuss this. Apart from security concerns, there are also concerns that allowing refugees to settle permanently could change the demographic balance of a country, and also leading to shift in political representation and social dynamics. But is this fear justified, or is it an exaggerated reaction rooted in xenophobia rather than reality?
Yeah, sadly it's because of xenophobia. This actually echoes with this great replacement theory, which actually says that migrants would come and actually take over the country and change the demography and change the politics and so on. And it's not just unique in ASEAN region, but it's also happening in Europe, in the US now. So sadly, that's happening everywhere with xenophobia. Well, I would say that, you know, if you look at the statistics, you know, like these refugees actually represent a small portion of the local population. And in fact, you know, in the countries of Malaysia, Indonesia and Thailand, well, especially Malaysia and Thailand, we rely heavily on migrant labor. So which means, you know, we have many low-waged or high-waged expatriates or migrants who actually contribute to the economy. So by looking at, you know, refugees as security issue, we are just like exaggerating. And this is where scholars actually argue about the securitization of a refugee issue when, you know, they think that there's an existential threat when there is not. You know, the way how we should do is, you know, to give protection to them and actually allow them to be empowered so that they actually can contribute to our economy and countries.
Dr. Touching on the social implication of the refugees in the region, how does public perception shapes or influence refugee policies in ASEAN countries, and what can be done to counter this kind of misinformation that you mentioned?
Yeah, I guess, yeah, this is an ongoing debate that we have, you know, the issue of integration. So the thing is, you know, these ASEAN countries, you know, they refuse to let refugees to integrate within, into the local society because this fear that, you know, this might actually encourage them to live here permanently. But as I mentioned earlier, you know, temporary shelter, you know, is just a myth because in reality, there's like a few of generations of refugees who have been living in ASEAN countries. For example, Myanmar, Rohingya, ethnic Rohingya. So they became stateless due to the 1982 Burma citizenship law, and which means, you know, they, you know, have to constantly move. And there are like over 4 generations of Rohingya refugees stateless in Malaysia, and they've called Malaysia home. So I think, you know, there should be a greater understanding about you know, each other, and, you know, like integration is a two-way process. So it's not just about, you know, we expect, you know, these refugees to actually understand our culture, but at the same time, we don't allow them, you know, rights, basic rights, for example, education or healthcare and also employment. How are they gonna, you know, integrate into the local society if they do not have agency? So I think that's why, you know, by providing them with basic rights, for example, the right to work is very important to empower them so that actually they can contribute to the country. And in fact, you know, they've been contributing a lot to the country, but it's just that they are being undocumented. And that's why, you know, we see a lot of exploitation, especially in Malaysia and Thailand, you know, when, you know, these refugees become low-wage workers.
And also, how should ASEAN countries, you know, balance humanitarian obligations with national identity concerns without falling into xenophobic policies?
So I guess I just want to reiterate, you know, the point that, you know, providing opportunities to these refugees because actually by providing opportunities to these refugees, you know, they can become active agents and they can contribute to the nations. I think that one, most important thing is to understand the root cause of their displacements, because, you know, refugees will keep coming when the root cause is not addressed. And in this issue, ASEAN, you know, we have to look, you know, at Myanmar because, you know, the ongoing conflict that is happening there is causing, you know, thousands, hundreds of thousands of people being displaced. So when we talk about security, you know, like the instability in Myanmar is causing all this. And other than that, it's also like socio-economic issues. For example, the Sustainable Development Goals, which call for, you know, equitable growth, reduce inequalities, access to basic rights. Because, if you look at around the world, when there's like inequalities, there would always be conflicts and wars and displacements, which cause people, to be forced to flee their homes.
Well, there's still a lot to unpack about the refugee situation in ASEAN, but we'll take a short break and we'll be right back after this.
Aku cabar kau sebagai calon kasturi. 3, 2, 1.
Kaha, Kapla High Council, siaran dan stream on demand atau sila ke saluran 480.
Welcome back to ASEAN Kita, where we are joined by Dr. Aslam Abdul Jalil, Senior Lecturer in University of Malaya, to talk about the refugee situation in this region of ASEAN. So, Doctor, when we talk about the role of international and regional cooperation, we have UNHCR, such a global institution. So, what role should ASEAN play in working with institutions like UNHCR? Should ASEAN establish its own regional framework for refugee protection, and what would that look like?
Yeah, thank you for that question. So UNHCR, the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees, is given the mandate to actually take care, of refugees, and in the context of ASEAN countries, since ASEAN countries do not have their own asylum policies, that means UNHCR actually does the refugee status determination process, as well as manages the resettlement to third countries. So what I suggest, ASEAN countries. Actually, before we talk about the regional asylum process, these three countries that I focused earlier, Malaysia, Indonesia, and Thailand, they already have their own local mechanism. So, for example, Malaysia, we have the National Security Council Directive number 23, which actually outlines some of the basic rights that refugees in Malaysia should enjoy, such as access to employment, access to healthcare, education, documentation, and freedom of movement. But of course, in the context of Malaysia, because it is not widely known about this, there's like contradictory measures by the government as well. For example, when refugees work, they are also arrested. In Indonesia, in 2016, there's like presidential regulation number 125, which actually defines, who a refugee is, and how the local authorities can actually, help refugees. And Indonesia, there's a circular by the Ministry of Education that allows refugees to actually enter state school. Whereas in Thailand, back in 2019, they set up this national screening mechanism. But, there are some issues in terms of, the terms that they use, for example, and the protection that is being emphasized in NSM, National Security Mechanism, is always, about, third countries, protection, and not Thailand, which actually is a huge gap. So I think what we need to do is, ASEAN should have a harmonization of, all these asylum frameworks, because apparently these countries, they have different conceptualizations of what a refugee is, or who a refugee is, who is eligible to become a refugee. And I think that they should work together with UNHCR, to put the standards, the definition, the obligations that these states have to actually provide to these refugees. And I think working using the current mechanism that we have is the way forward.
And also, as Malaysia takes on the ASEAN chairmanship in 2025, what leadership role can it play in shaping a stronger refugee policy for the region, and also what steps should ASEAN or Malaysia specifically take to ensure long-term sustainable solutions for refugees?
Well, we should applaud the chairman of ASEAN, Malaysia, actually, for being so vocal in voicing out the oppression and genocide that is happening in Gaza and Palestine at the moment. And I think taking from that momentum, Malaysia can do a lot more as the chairman of ASEAN to actually voice out the issues, the injustices that are happening around the world, including in our region. So in our region, Myanmar issue is a pressing issue that must be solved. And, back in 2021, ASEAN countries, ASEAN as a whole actually had this 5-point consensus to actually address the conflict in Myanmar and, of course, the persecution that the military junta is actually doing to its people. So I think what we can do is actually for ASEAN to engage more, to utilize more the existing mechanisms such as ASEAN Intergovernmental Commission on Human Rights, AICHA, as well as ASEAN Parliamentarians for Human Rights, APHR. So these are two bodies that I think, are suited to actually take up the role in supporting, the member countries, in upholding human rights and giving protection to refugees and asylum seekers in this region. And I would come up with 3 recommendations. So short term, medium term, as well as long term. Short term, I think, with the ongoing conflict, we receive more boats. More boats are coming into our shores. And I think ASEAN cannot simply keep turning away the boats because, this would make these people die at sea. And that's against UNCLOS, United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea. So I think there should be a joint search and rescue efforts by ASEAN countries, especially Myanmar, especially Thailand, Malaysia, and Indonesia. And for medium term, this is important as being emphasized in New York Declaration, which actually ASEAN members actually agreed upon to provide opportunities for refugees to be empowered, basic rights, the right to work, education, healthcare, as well as freedom of movement. And for the long term, I believe that, we should build upon the existing mechanism that we have. So as I told earlier, Bangkok Principles, 1966, revised in 2001, Article 16 of the ASEAN Declaration of Human Rights. And, and there should be a harmonization of the asylum frameworks that, all these ASEAN countries already have.
Doctor, when we talk about refugees, some argue that it's a shared responsibility. And if you look at the context of it right now, the status quo is the responsibility of hosting refugees is not evenly distributed across ASEAN. Like countries like Malaysia and Thailand and Indonesia receive large numbers, while others take, such in small numbers. So how can ASEAN ensure a fairer burden sharing among its member states? And what mechanism would help make this a reality, Doctor?
Yeah, that's a sad thing. I mean, it's a phenomenon in the world as well, because most of refugees are actually residing in low-income and middle-income countries, not in high-income countries as what we imagine. So I think this is why, there should be a common agreement, amongst ASEAN countries. As you mentioned earlier, we have countries like high-income countries like Brunei and Singapore, and, they are not hosting any refugees. And I think, ASEAN should, sit down together and talk about this collectively, not, responding to refugee issues individually. So what is happening now is that, individual countries, especially Malaysia, Thailand and Indonesia, they are acting separately, individually, towards refugees. It's always ad hoc and temporary, but there's no collective decision within ASEAN itself. So I think this is very important for ASEAN collectively, need to sit down and agree on certain things, on, fairer responsibility sharing, to address the human rights issues and issues faced by refugees in this region.
And also when we talk about ASEAN, ASEAN's economic success is often highlighted in global discussions, yet, its refugee policies remain a blind spot that receives, little international scrutiny. What do you think? Will ASEAN's global reputation suffer if it continues to sideline refugee issues while promoting itself as a progressive regional bloc?
Yeah, definitely. Because Myanmar faced sanctions for so long, and it was ASEAN that, we thought that instead of isolating Myanmar, we should engage with Myanmar so that, we could change them gradually. And I think, having that experience, we should continue the momentum because, as I mentioned earlier, the root cause of displacements would be persecution. And to stop refugees, from coming is to stop the persecution. And I think, by not solving the Myanmar issue, it actually tarnishes the image of Malaysia and ASEAN as a whole, of course, because, we champion about human rights issues in Palestine, in Bosnia, and in other countries throughout the world, but at the same time, we fail to actually solve the issue in Myanmar. And I think, by having the 5-point consensus by ASEAN members, that's a good step forward. And I think it's also a missed opportunity, actually, because ASEAN countries, we are exploiting refugees. They become undocumented workers. And back in 2018, Ideas Malaysia actually made a report that, if Malaysia allowed refugees to work legally in Malaysia, refugees could contribute to the Malaysian economy over 3 billion ringgit by 2024. That was last year, right? And there's no policy that allowed refugees to work. So it's a missed opportunity. And in fact, Ideas actually predicted that this policy would create 4,000 jobs for Malaysian workers. So which means, at the moment, refugees are already contributing to the economies of Malaysia and Thailand. But just imagine, if we allow them to work legally, they could be a lot more contribution that they can make to the society. However, I need to, remind us not to see refugees as, productive units, solely productive units. So as anthropologist Georgiana Ramsey actually mentioned, humanitarian exploits, when there's an intersection between helping these refugees and at the same time making profit of them. So we understand, we acknowledge their contribution, but at the same